Why are TCG packs so addicting to open? Well, in today's video, we're going to be exploring why we get the urge to open TCG packs and how companies set them up so that we go back for more each set. Welcome back to TCG Psychology, the channel where we turn psychological insights into competitive advantages. And yes, today I'm going to be opening the can of worms that is the psychological reasons behind why we want to open TCG packs. Now, when it comes to TCG packs, it's really important that we understand the role that dopamine plays. Now, dopamine is a chemical that is released in our brain, and it sort of rewards us and makes us feel good about certain actions that we do. It has other roles as well, but primarily we are going to be focusing on the role in terms of reward and motivation for this video. Now, when we open those TCG packs and we see that secret rare, we see that legendary, we see that special illustration, we are getting a big input of dopamine, and that makes us feel really good about that situation. Now, this is then linked to our memory of that situation. We have really strong memory when it comes to those sorts of experiences. We're able to recall the feelings of opening those rare cards. Now, what this does is it kind of skews our memory in terms of when we open those packs that have bulk cards in them, or we don't get anything, very special. We don't really remember those packs as much or as well. So we have a tendency to be able to recall those really good packs that we open, even if they're one in however many packs in between to get those sorts of hits. So dopamine plays a big role in not only making us feel good about hitting those cards, but then also influencing our memory around opening the packs in general as well. So we're going to explore how and why TCG companies set up packs the way that they do to keep us hooked on opening more. And in order to do that, we're going to explore some early behavioral psychologist work from Skinner, who is a famous behavior psychologist who's kind of foundational to some of the ways that we think about psychology today. Now, he ran an experiment with pigeons where they had a lever in a box, and one time he had it set so that whenever the pigeons needed food pellets, they would hit the lever and it would release the pellet. So what he found was they would only hit the lever whenever they're hungry and they needed the food, and that's kind of what the findings from that box were. He also set up another box where he would randomly provide food pellets at random intervals for those pigeons. So, they might hit it, no food pellet was released. They might hit it 4 times and a food pellet was released. And what he found was it actually changed their behavior to hit the buttons and the lever, more frequently than compared to the other box where they released the food pellet more often. So end up with the pigeons hitting that lever even if they weren't hungry, because they weren't sure when the next food pellet was going to come. Now, if we link this to the way that TCG packs are set up, obviously we know what the pull rates are. Publishers often, or they do showcase what the pull rates are for each of their boxes. So we go in knowing what the different rates are going to be, but the actual feeling of wanting to open those packs and, beat the odds to get that rare, that can influence the way that we behave around opening TCG packs. So the reason it's so, there's a big dopamine release is because when we first open that pack and, we're working our way through the pack to look at what hits we have at the back, there's a big anticipation in terms of, anything could be at the back of this pack. This could be like the rarest pack to open, or it could be the worst pack to open. We just don't know at that point. So there's a big anticipation. So when we get to the back of the pack, when we do hit that legendary, or we do hit something, we do get that dopamine release. But TCG companies are very clever in the way that they'll set up those packs. So, for example, with legendaries, it might be 1 in 8, it might be 1 in 10, however that those odds look. But not every legendary in the set is going to be made the same. Not every single legendary each set is going to be hugely competitive and played in, meta decks. So we hit that legendary, we think, oh great, we hit those odds, we got a good pack here, we get that dopamine release, but that legendary might not necessarily be playable. So we've had the reward of opening the pack, and now we start to think about, okay, well, you know, the next one's more likely to be a legendary that I can play. And it sort of creates this cycle of us wanting to open more packs. On top of this, you know, we see multiple release cycles each year for TCGs. And again, that's the way that TCGs are set up in order to keep people engaged and to keep the meta moving, etc. But again, this is very tactical from TCG companies. You'll see some games have a few releases a year, other games have many releases a year. And what they're trying to do is bank on us wanting to keep going in to get those new cards and to push our luck on getting those rare cards each set. So again, the release cycles are there and designed to keep us engaged in the game and to keep us coming back and buying more. For the reason that we don't want to miss out on getting those rare cards as we're opening new sets. Now, another thing you might notice is that the demographic of TCG players is typically young adults. Obviously, children play the game as well, and you've got older adults that engage in the game as well. But in terms of the scene right now, from competitions that I enter, etc., you see a lot of young adults playing TCGs. The reason being is because when it comes to logical thinking, our prefrontal cortex is responsible for us being able to analyze situations and come to rational decisions. This doesn't actually fully develop into your 20s and it varies from person to person. So if you think about having this addictive nature of TCG packs and not necessarily having our prefrontal cortex fully developed and being able to make rational decisions all the time, then that's where you're going to be targeted in terms of, okay, I want to buy more packs, etc. So again, TCG demographics are typically set up in a way that TCG companies are able to maximize how many packs individuals can buy, in terms of that population just typically might want to go in and spend more money on those packs because of, you know, that rational decision making might not be fully at the front of their mind at that point. Okay, so what can we do to sort of combat the way that TCGs are set up to make us spend more and more money? Well, the first suggestion that I have is, if you are struggling to sort of deal with this addiction, because it can become an addiction, you know, if we start to spend more money than we can actually afford to buy TCG packs, then that's a cause for concern. And I would obviously recommend seeking out some support from mental health professionals around addiction and maybe gambling hotlines so that you receive the support that you need. But outside of that, other suggestions that I have include setting a limit each set for how much you're going to spend on sealed products. If you know you're going to buy one box or two boxes and that's comfortable for you to afford each set, then go ahead and enjoy that feeling of opening packs. It's really fun, you know, at the start of a set when you've got new cards and you don't know all the cards in the set yet and you see them when you're opening the packs, and that brings you joy. That's great, and you can maintain that in your hobby. That's the way to enjoy TCGs. When it starts to get to the point where, you know, you're going past that limit, you're spending more money than you anticipated, and you start seeing the same cards over and over again and your bulk pile is just growing, then that's the point where you might need to reflect on whether, you know, this is too much at this point. Now, if you do get to that point, again, my recommendation is to start buying singles rather than going for the sealed product. You can spend less on completing a collection if you're focusing on buying those single cards that you need by the time you've opened a couple of boxes, or if you're just wanting to build competitive decks, then again, I would always recommend, you know, if you're not there to collect all the cards, just focusing on the deck that you want to build for that set, or the deck that you've been building over multiple sets, and just buy the singles that you need for that deck as well. And then, as I've mentioned in previous videos as well, if you are deciding on whether you want to play a specific deck or not, it's always better to play with proxies rather than investing money into the sealed product to try and open those cards that you need for that deck, so that you know whether you actually want to play the deck or not. Again, there's nothing worse than buying sealed products and buying singles just to build a deck that you end up putting to one side and not needing after figuring out that you don't want to play it. So make sure you set those limits, make sure you recognize when you're starting to spend too much on sealed. Buy singles at that point if you want to complete out the collection or complete play sets for your decks, and then use proxies if you want to test out how to how a deck runs before you invest in buying sealed product or singles to get the cards that you need. If you know anyone that would find this video useful, then do feel free to share it with them. Make sure to like and subscribe to the channel so you're notified when future videos are released. In the comments section down below, let me know what your tips and tricks are to deal with the addictive nature of TCGs. And until the next time, make sure you win the mind game meta.